Hi gang, this is Hexy. Hey, let's unbox something here. So I've been trying to, or I'm going to start trying to put a little catch up here. So I'm going to unbox Operation Theseus, which actually I've already opened this thing up and I've already punched the counters out. Really haven't had a chance to take a look at the game. This was sent to me from the gang over at VUCA Simulations, and this is one of three that they sent me. You've already seen me play Crossing the Line, Aachen 44, and this one I believe is from a similar series, or from the similar rules, core rules. So this is Conflict Simulations Engineering, made in Germany. This is VUCA Simulations. This is a World War II game. This is Hex and Counter, Operation Theseus, Gazala 1942. Let's see what we got on the back here. You know, Hexy, I'm not real all about this kind of stuff here, but let's take a crack at it. So the situation is, after the Commonwealth offensive Operation Crusader, the Axis overran Cyrenaica for a second time and prepared for the capture of Tobruk. If successful, the Axis might have the opportunity to drive to Egypt, perhaps crossing the River Nile and reaching Cairo. To prevent this, the British Eighth Army established a defensive line consisting of immense minefields and fortified positions of some 43 miles, 70 kilometers in length. The game, Operation Theseus Gazala 1942, is an operational level simulation of the Gazala battles of 1942, which took place during May and June of that year. The game is intended for two players, but it's very suitable for solitaire, which I found out the system is very suitable for solitaire. The goal for the Axis player is to hit the Commonwealth forces hard and see specific victory locations, thereby opening the door to Egypt. The Commonwealth player wants to prevent this from happening, thereby eliminating the Axis potential for further offensives. The game is played in a semi-interactive way and keeps both players involved at all times. The contents, it comes with one rulebook, one mounted map, 383 large counters, 4 double-sided player aids, and their player aids are very nice. Everything in this boxes are very nice. Okay, they do a knockout job with this stuff. You wanna buy games that have great quality in the contents of the box. The 3 that they've sent me, just knockouts. They're gorgeous. All right, so 4 double-sided player aids, 1 double-sided setup display, 1 solitaire play track sheet, and 2 10-sided dice. All right, the unit scale in this game is infantry brigades, regiments, and tank battalions and regiments. Time scale is 1 to 6 days. The map is 2.2 miles, or 3.5 K per hex. The scenarios are, there's 3 scenarios in it, including a campaign. Playing time is 60 minutes to 10 hours, depending on which scenario you choose. 2 players are solitaire. This game, the designer is, they don't have their first names written on here, so I think this is Dirk Blenneman. And the developer and art director is Patrick Gebhardt, which Patrick's the one that reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to take a look at some of these games. The graphic artist is, I don't know the first name, it's P. Bazuke. And then the rules editor is Patrick Gebhardt. The game meter for complexity is a 7. Solitaire suitability is an 8. And again, this is in 1942. Looks like it's about the ending period of 1942. So let's take a look at what's inside. Like I say, I've already pushed these out and put them in a tray, but that's really as far as I've gotten. Beautiful cover. These boxes are sturdy. They don't come in a shrink wrap. They come with these stickers on them, which I think are fine. That's great. And but the boxes are just, they're so well manufactured. I don't know if they're doing this themselves or getting them from a certain place or whatever, but they're absolutely gorgeous. So like I say, I've already pushed the counters out. No clipping necessary for these things. You don't have to clip them. You want to, go for it. You know me, I love to clip everything, but I found I didn't have to. They do have some nibs on the bottom and top. There's a couple ways to get those off. A rolling razor, one of those disc, one of these things. Hold on. A lot of people don't like to use these things and they can be dangerous, but I use these sometimes. Or you can just use an X-Acto knife and push the stuff off of there. And they have some of these counters, hexagons, which is really cool. I'm starting to see there's a few games out there that have this type of counter in them for terrain and stuff like that. So I find this interesting. All right, so these are miscellaneous counters in here. You've got, looks like a British or Indian, some of the Allied minor, all right? You've got more informational counters for isolation and victory-controlled hexes. And there's also some chits in here like, let's see, assignment chips, or chits, isolation chits. I think that's about all that's in there. Improved defenses, which has a very easy to use concept where you spend an action point and you build an improved defense. All right. Looks like we got some, these are German units here, so we look like we got some Afrikorps stuff in here. 21st Panzer, 15th Panzer, and I think you got the 5th LE in here too. And then a whole bunch of Italian units, all right? Here's your, when you do combat, these are your, pretty much these are your strength counters, all right? You'll determine by what type of attack or defense you're doing, what your morale or cohesion is, and you'll use this number here, and that's what your multiplier will be. So I mean, you can have attacks if you got like I know in crossing the line, if you had like a 14 strength unit and you hit on one of these multipliers of 3, all of a sudden your strength is 42. All right, don't necessarily believe though that that's going to just destroy the hex you're attacking, because it doesn't always work that way. And then here's your, and I don't know what they call these things, but it's your disc type strength counters. They go all the way up to like 15, I think. Yeah, they go all the way up to 15. So I got a couple of those. Not a whole lot of counters in there. And then there's this little thing. And I think this is probably one of the greatest creations for a game. You put this on your combat chart, and you slide it across to whatever the odds are you're doing. And that way you don't have to see all that stuff, and you can see your dice roll right there next to the column, which I'll show you in a minute how this works, okay? And then your combat results table for like your terrain, depending on what terrain yours is all up here. So it cuts out a lot of the calculations of determining what kind of terrain and stuff you're in, because it puts you in a column according to the terrain you're in, so you don't have to think about calculating that. All right, so let's get that out of the way, and let's start pulling out stuff here. So we got a magazine. We got a rule book, all right? And their rule books are very nice. They're a not quite glossy, more like a semi-gloss. Very nice paper, stapled in the bindings. And the artwork and the depth and detail that they put into these rule books with, for example, right there, you've got situation with the movements of units and how this stuff was played out, okay? And then the rules they're not super large font, but they're not small font. 2-column, easy to read. And these rules in these games, so far, the rules in the first game I played, this is not a difficult system, and it's a very good and reflective system. So you got an overall map with Tobruk up top there and Eldadem below. Now, if I remember right, this is covering where Rommel, well, you know, I don't want to say that, but I'm thinking of the game I played where Rommel swung around the bottom of the British front line with all the minefields and everything. And then the other game I'm thinking I played was a BCS game where the Germans had all those minefields to the southeast, and the Brits were on the move towards Tobruk. But I believe this one is about Rommel and them taking Tobruk. How many pages of rules we got here? These rule books are awesome. If everybody did all their rule books like this, it'd be amazing. We'd have nothing but, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good rule books out there. But just the way this one is laid out, the feel of the paper. Now, you're not going to do much highlighting in here, but you can download PDF copies of their rules, which is what I do before I play. Easy to read text. The way they highlight the paragraphs or the main like 6.5 is done in the formation reactions is done. This is the header for this chapter, this section, and then all the subsections are in a black title. Okay, so they do that really well. But it looks like we got 24 pages of rules. You've got 3 phases that you play in this game. Okay. Well, actually, and really, it's really 2. It's an intern phase. You got an admin phase, but then you got your action phases where you're doing stuff, and that's where you execute everything by the expenditure of action points. You'll get formation points, and then the formation points will tell you how many action points you're going to get to use for your units. So as your activations go on and your formations start to come down on their column from whatever it may be, from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4, every time you activate them, the numbers of action points you get are less and less. So it starts out feeling like, God, I'm going to be playing this turn forever. But as you work your way down, and you may not even use them all because you got to recover. You can only recover so many each turn. The action points that you'll draw or off the dice roll will be less and less and less. So it kind of moves along actually pretty good. And there's nothing super complex about how you move and combat or anything else in this game, okay? All right, so the scenarios, looks like they start on page 25. I think it said there's 3 scenarios, including 1 campaign game. It's the artwork, man. Just the stuff they throw in here, that just, putting the maps in here, showing where do you place your victory hex marker placement. And, this is what the map's going to look like, which we'll get out here. Probably won't be able to see it all. But, I'm blurring you out there. There we go. So you've got you can see the whole map there with your turn record chart on it, and your activation markers and stuff. This is not as big as Crossing the Line was, the activation marker table. Look at this. I mean, you can't. How many games do we know out there that have this kind of description in the background? This is a combat sequence example. So you know what? Don't know how to play? Get this thing out, turn back here to page 28, set the pieces up, and go to town, follow what they do. And I guarantee you, you'll have 75% of the game down just by doing this, okay? And then player's notes, historical context about the battle, designer's notes up there. And then what else could... The final touch to any rule book that a lot of people are starting to catch on to nowadays, that index at the end to go find rules. I play a lot of Great Battles of American Civil War, and if you don't have that at the back of the book, you're not finding as easy as the things you need to find without that index. So that's a rule book for that. Let's take a look at some of the other stuff in the box before we get to the map. Map's gonna be hard to see. All right, there you go. There's the two 10-sided dice. All right. Black and red, so we're going to say what? The Commonwealth will be red and the Germans will be the black. All right, let's get out some of these player aids here. Oh, and yes, they did send me, I haven't looked to see if these are just updated versions of these things, or these look like updated player aids. And they're player aids, let me tell you right now. Here, let's get one of these. That's chipboard or heavy card stock. This stuff is not... I mean, you hear it when you tap it. This is cardboard. This is high quality stuff here. And here's the best part about it. Unlike that rule book, which is kind of slick, well, you don't want to put counters down on anything slick, like a lot of the games we play the maps are. This is not. You can tell it's coated, but it is not slick, so your counters aren't going to be sliding around this thing. And if you bump it, you know it's going to happen. But this covers all your activations. All right. You have an action point track over here, which is when you activate a formation, you roll the dice depending on what their level is. You'll figure out how many points they get, and then you'll apply the points to movement, certain types of attacks, how strong you're going to attack or how weak you're going to attack. You have what's called a reaction, where whoever a unit moves adjacent. Now, like I said, I have not been through these rules, but I'm assuming that the core rules will probably be pretty similar. When you move adjacent to an enemy unit, the parent formation can do a reaction. But when they do a reaction, they'll burn one of their points, the formation points, and then they'll roll. And usually on the chart, it's a little different. See if I can't find that for you here. Yeah, the action point chart will be, the black side will be whoever the active player is, and the red column will be the reacting player, okay? And all of their stuff, this is what's really cool. To play the game, the charts you need to play the game for combat and all that and action points, there it is. 2 player aids, focus baby, 2 player aids, front and back, okay? And this even gives you an explanation of some of the rules and how isolation works, how the square punt marker affects, how to breach the minefield box affects, disruption effects. It gives you everything almost playable right here off of this card. And then if I believe I'm right, there you go. There's a sequence of play right there. So once you've read through this book, and I'll tell you, when I read Crossing the Line, I was talking about a wardrobe. I shut everything off in my living room here. I sat on the couch and I read, and before I knew it, I was done with the rules in no time at all, and had enough of it in my head that I know I could go play. All right? So there you go. 2 player aid cards, front and back. And like I say, now they have sent me this. I need to look to see if this is an updated version of those cards or not. I don't know. It looks pretty much the same. But we'll find out. I'll dig them up and find out, or I'm sure Patrick will send me a message telling me, yep, they're updated, or there's something different about them. Like I say, then there's your tracks right there, nothing on the back, because you're going to have that laid out. And you've got both sides here. You've got the Germans here, the Axis, and you've got the Commonwealth, okay? And then you've got your formation assignment boxes. You've got your turn record track. Now look, another game turn, another game that's 8 turns. Don't think that because there's only 8 turns there, you're going to be done in 10 minutes. That's not going to happen. These games play like little tiny monsters, all right? And as these little markers start to go down and these action points get less and less, you might be thinking, oh man, I got all these units in place for a big attack, and this formation, the 90th LE, is down to They've got a 5 activation, and you roll a stinking 1. And you get, excuse me, you get 1 action point. Guess what? The only attack you're doing is a hasty, and you don't want to do that. Or you're going to move 1 unit. And that's how it goes. All right. Scenario setup board for scenarios 2 and 3. And then here is the scenario setup board for 2 and 3 for the Allied forces. So I'm going to assume that since there's only 1 setup board, maybe one of these handles the campaign, maybe one of these setups is for the campaign, where maybe scenario 2, you start the campaign from there and you just play the whole game all the way out to all 8 turns. And maybe, I haven't looked at it yet, so maybe scenario 3 is maybe it's halfway through the campaign or something like that. I don't know. I'll research that later when I get this out to play. All right, so there's everything contents-wise except for the map. Now, I doubt we're going to be able to see the whole map. I'll do the best I can because I don't have my camera up high enough. I think I'm going to have to turn on the manual focus. But here's the map. These are fold-out maps, and let me tell you something. These things lay down pretty good, okay? I didn't have any issues. Now, granted, I'm going to play under plexiglass. I pretty much do that regardless. I may not do that with this one. I don't know. Let's get the board laid out here. And let's get the board turned around here. Like I said, unless I move my camera, you're probably not going to see all of this. So I put it down under plexiglass. You make a couple of folds, and the thing's going to sit down just fine. If not, you can put something on the end of it. But these maps, I don't know if I have a better looking North Africa map, all right, Serenica map or whatever. I really don't know. But all your charts, your action markers, you don't even have to necessarily use the card. You can do it all on here where you put all your chits on the one box over there for activation and just play right off the board. You don't even have to have that. But I'm going to tell you, it's only 1 player aid that you got to lay out beside this map somewhere. I play this on my dining room table over there, and I can put that, the turn record track or the player aid for that, I can put it up top there. And I'm off and running. And then I have room off here to the right side of the map where I can lay my player aids down. There's not a whole lot of informational counters to deal with. Okay? So what we say, 2.2 miles per hex, 3.5. We got Tobruk up top. All right, here's Knightsbridge. El Adem here. The Trig Capuzzo, the Trig El Abd. So you got, of course, in the desert, not very many high traffic roads out here in the desert as you start to get farther south. Your major thoroughfares, you got Bardia going off to the right side of the map over here, and then back towards Derna to the top over that way. So most of the time we're going to open up one of these maps, think of the desert, we're not going to see a whole lot of terrain. But guess what? This one does. All right, and I'm going to assume these are the perimeter fortified hexes for Tobruk. All right, but it looks like you've got the, I would call them cliffs where you couldn't cross those unless there was an alleyway like a road or something going up these, if I remember right. You got something that slightly looks like mountains. There's a terrain key on one of the other boards that you can pull out. And then it looks like to me like the rest of this is just mostly just straight out desert. But for some reason, I think that this fortified line that runs down through here, wasn't it this area here was where Rommel, yeah, because here's Bir Hakem down here, Hakem, whatever, where Rommel shot around and just messed the Commonwealth all up from coming swinging around behind him. I don't know if that's it. I don't know a whole lot about the desert, but we're going to find out. So there's a peek at your map. Like I say, so there. I have 2 games that I've looked at. I've watched Rough and Blue play Donnerschlag. Nate's playing it right now, the wise guy, and that's another good-looking map. And that's another game in not in this series, but it's Hex and Counter with some cards thrown in. I'm not touching that one yet because all those guys are doing it, and there's no sense in me cutting into what they're doing. But this is Operation Theseus. This is Gazala in 42. This is from VUCA Simulations. And hey, Patrick and the gang over VUCA, hey, thank y'all for sending me this. This will get to the table here not too long. Thanks again for sending me this game. I can't wait to see what this looks like when I get up to play. I got a feeling this one will move along a little bit quicker than crossing the line at Aachen, because that was a major, I guess, Allied offensive. I mean, this was too, but it's a little more scattered, and the amount of forces I think in this aren't, they're not quite as dense, so this should move along a little bit better. All right, so once again, VUCA Simulations, Operation Theseus, Gazala 1942. All right, let's get this up so everybody can see what's in the box.